So, good afternoon everyone. My name is Jose Maribasa or from EJM from Group 5, and together with me is Cristobal Rabino and John Christian Hikin, and we will be discussing today the topic developing and managing an R&D laboratory. So, today we cut into three phases our report, which will include leadership in R&D, organization of R&D, breaking of R&D isolation, and managing of R&D laboratory. But to manage your expectation, the assigned subtopics to me are the first two layers, which is leadership, organization, and breaking of R&D isolation. While the rest will be discussed by my group mates, managing of R&D laboratory. So let's proceed with leadership and R&D. Why do you think that leadership in research and development laboratory or any organization is very important? Well, personally, it's because any organization needs someone who has the capability to lead, to be an expert in his industry or in his job role or job function. Someone that really a mentor to everyone, and that that can build relationship and provide long-term vision and mission in the organization. So in this topic, I will be discussing improving leadership skills, creating the vision, and types of leadership. And our reference for this topic is Howard Hughes, MI 2006A Lab Leadership in Science. So let's proceed with improving leadership skills. So first, what is leadership? Basically, it's about getting a group of people to enact a vision of what needs to be accomplished. So if you notice here in this slide, I highlighted three main factors. So number one is vision, number two is relationship, and accomplished task. Because somehow there's a formula to it, that leadership is equivalent to a vision plus relationships and tasks. But how do we relate it to a research and development organization or laboratory? So vision is basically a leader has to create a vision and set the direction for the laboratory. It's the direction actually. It's the guidance that he will be offering to his team members. Relationship, because number one, he needs to build and manage a team. It's not actually a simple task to be a leader, because if you're building a team, you have to see everyone, their personality, how they work, their expertise. So it's pretty much more on the people engagement and development. Number two, create an environment where people are able to give and receive feedback. So feedback is very essential in an organization, because a team member should know the things that he needs to improve on and the things that he is capable of, or his strength or weakness. Number three is motivation and support for employees. With respect to the laboratory, of course, there are a lot of employees who are pursuing graduate studies, and they will really appreciate if they will be able to get support from the company. Number two is delegate responsibility, fair decisions, and manage conflicts. So if you are a leader, you should know that you have the authority to delegate your task, because not all the time you would do all the same thing with your team member. So you have to delegate the responsibility as well with your team members, so that they can be trained and learn on how to manage a team someday. And fair decisions. So decision-making skills is very essential to be in being a leader, because there's a risk, at the same time there is a positive impact in the company if you made the right decision. And number four, and second to the last and last, is be sensitive to diverse population and needs. So just like what I mentioned before, you are dealing with different personalities. So you have to be sensitive in a way on how you talk to them. But at the same time, you have the authority on how they will treat you. Because at the end of the day, they will report to you. So that's how, for me, being a leader is. be a mentor to others. This is the most important thing that you have to consider if you're leading a team. You have to be like a mentor, not a manager slash boss. Leader slash mentor is different from being a boss and manager. Um, Mentor is someone that you can ask help with and be able to give advice about your career growth, about the challenges that you're currently facing, and be just a friend. So basically, that's it. So relationships is very important in being a leader. And lastly is task. So task is more, I would say, quantifiable, because in this way you would see the output or the result of your team. And this points out the key things that you need to consider. So number one is you have to determine time frame. For every research organization or for every project that you're currently working with, there should always be a timeline. And you have to set a timeline with your team members. Number two is budget. Of course, the operational expenses, or what's so-called OPEX, you have to consider it, because for every software that you buy or for every license that you purchase, there's an operational expenses. Number three, four, and five, three and four is somewhat similar. Write grants and papers and teach courses. So it goes on both ways, because with respect to the laboratory, as I mentioned earlier, you're dealing with scientists, mathematicians, with engineers, and it needs to have, you have to write grants and papers. At the same time, you have to teach your courses so that you can be learned from your team members as well, at the same time sharing your knowledge to everyone. And then juggle many different demands at once. So, of course, you have your own limitation, and you have to know who to prioritize, what to prioritize, and when to prioritize. So that's it. So next is how to develop leadership skills. So these are just some essential in developing leadership skills and how to improve leadership skills. Basically, it will, I already discussed it, just earlier. So, i-point out ko lang yung mga important key points here in this presentation. I think the first two in essentials in developing leadership skills are essential. Number one is choose a behavior that you want to modify. Choose a specific goal for changing your behavior. As I said earlier, there's no perfect leader. So sometimes there will be conflict between you and your team member. So you have to assess yourself, what did you do? And what are the things that you have done or could have done in order to improve that situation? And for this one, how to improve leadership skills is, how can you be a leader somehow with some references. So basically, number one, find a mentor. So ako, with my experience, I really value leadership when it comes to choosing the company that I really want to work with. So if I see that this leader has a vision, then I would go for it. Of course, syempre, with other considerations like monetary value or yung compensation natin, the benefits that you're getting from the company, and as such. Number two is reading books and attend courses. So basically, pretty much simple. There are a lot of online courses and books like John Maxwell, Francis Kong, Ching Kitan, Jonathan Yabut is also active, in providing speeches about leadership. And lastly is get to know your strength and weakness. So it's about embracing your weakness at the same time improving your strength. Okay, so creating the vision, my second topic is very simple. I will let you read the statement here, but this just focuses on what is the value of keeping your team members aware about the vision. Basically, from Charles Murray, sinabi niya na if you keep on reminding your team members to any organization about the vision, it will keep in their mind that, this is the vision that my boss wants me to do. or this is the vision of the company. And you will be able to do more and be motivated at the end of the day. And lastly is creating a vision will reflect to a good mission statement. And what is a mission statement? Basically, this will tell you the kind of research you want to do, motivation of your research. So why are you doing this research? What is the value of this to my career growth, to the society, and the kind of atmosphere in which you want to work, or the organizational culture, which is very essential right now. Right now, ang dami ng open environment offices. We have this called agile methodology of way of working. So it's very important, to build a good organizational culture. Moving on is type of leadership. So what is type of leadership? There are a lot of leadership style models that I gathered, but I like the most this one from Blanchard and Hershey model. This will just tell you that there are 4 different types of leadership, which are supporting, coaching, delegating, and directing. But there are actually behind this parang X and Y axis. There is a supportive behavior and directive behavior. So in the supporting behavior, this will tell you that listening to people, providing assistance and encouragement, and then facilitating their involvement in problem solving and decision making. So you have to listen to the people or to your team members, and then after that, you give them advice. At the same time, encouragement, and then later after on, they will be involved to a decision-making process. While the directive behavior is more of telling the people on what to do this kind of research or this project, how to do it, when to do it, and closely monitoring that behavior. So mainly, if you notice, parang si supportive is more on the senior level side of the employee because they know what to do already. But in the directive, it's the other way around. Parang it's the opposite pala. Kasi sa directive, somehow ito yung mga fresh graduates na hindi pa nila alam kung paano talaga mag-work in the corporate world. So, let me discuss to you the distinctive approach of these different kinds of leadership. So, for supporting, it puts a low focus on task and higher one on relationship. So, since supporting nga lang siya, parang ito na yung mga nasa senior level na they know what to do, they already know how to do it. So, it's more on the relationship, building relationship with your team member. Coaching, this is actually both probably the hybrid, the better version of the 3 types of leadership. Parang combination siya ng supporting, delegating, and directing. Because it has high focus on both task and relationship. Number 3 is delegating, puts a low focus on both task and relationship. So kabalik na rin siya actually ng coaching. So for coaching, probably this would focus on ito yung mga fresh grad na nag-excel talaga in the industry. While delegating, these are the practitioners na sobrang alam na nila talaga kung paano gawin yung isang project. So you just need to delegate the responsibility or the role, and then they know how to do it. I-check mo na lang siya later on. While directing, this type puts a high focus on task and a lower one on relationship. So basically, these are the more starter ones. Because hindi pa sila ganun ka knowledgeable about the product that they're currently creating, or probably nagkaroon sila ng shift ng industry. That's why naging iba yung approach. So this needs to have a high focus on task and lower one on relationship. Okay, so if you have any questions, just message me in Facebook or in my email. Okay, so the second part of my report is about organization of research and development. And this would highlight 3 key main factors. Number 1 is how to measure the effectiveness on organization and what are the criteria. Number 3 is creativity for inventors or innovators? Sino ba talaga yung mas matimbang in terms of creativity? And then, formation of teams. How do you build and manage a team, basically? Okay, so let's focus on the first subtopic, which is criteria/measurement of effectiveness. So organization effectiveness is a vector that includes quantifiable and non-quantifiable outputs and reflect the quality and relationship of outputs to broad organizational goals and objectives. So, nag-highlight ulit ako ng two major factors or phrase dito sa definition ng organization effectiveness. First one is quantifiable and non-quantifiable outputs. So, there are some kasi na, you have to measure in numbers and there are some na qualitative measurement lang siya. So, somehow parang pwede nyo siyang gawing subjective at the same time objective. So, ganun yung measurement niya. Later, I'll discuss kung ano ba yung mga different kinds of measurement na quantifiable and quantitative and qualitative. And what are the criteria in measuring the organization effectiveness? Well, first is, medyo madami siya actually. In the research from Janital 2010D, there are about 30 attributes na nilista nila. How are we going to measure the effectiveness on organization? And they only highlighted this criteria. And ako, I highlighted my own, which are number one, quantity of output or the number of output or the patents that they were able to publish. The quality of work. How many are using your research for business purposes, for education, or whatever? Number 5 is level of stress. Gaano ba taas yung stress mo when you're doing your work? Are you motivated enough to do your work? Number 2 is level of job satisfaction. What is the impact of your research or specifically your role? For example, as an R&D specialist or R&D manager, meron ba siyang fulfillment? May value ba siya sa'yo? And lastly is of course profits. At the end of the day, we're doing R&D for the organization to survive, and thus it should have return on investment. So dapat actually hindi lang return on investment, dapat meron din siyang profit or revenue at the end of the year. So yeah. Of course, this criteria should be measured in a specific period of time. So it should always have a time frame as to when are you going to accomplish this, the measurement of organization. Okay, there are different sources in the book that I gathered. So the first one is from Blake, 1978, and the second one is Giaconi, 1994. But basically, what this measurement of organization will tell you is just actually merely the same with this slide. Na, mas ginawa lang simplified dito sa portion na to. But I'd like to focus on kay Giaconi kasi nagbigay siya ng 10 R&D activities and 6 operating levels to measure organizational effectiveness. So, medyo complicated siya actually. Medyo mahirap siya. Very complex siya to understand. But if you have an experience, in managing a project, you would understand this instance. So, 10 activities to note. Some of them, selecting R&D, planning and managing projects, generating new product ideas, maintaining the quality of the R&D process and methods, motivating people, establishing cross-disciplinary teams, coordination, R&D and marketing, transferring technology, fostering collaboration between R&D, finance, and linking R&D to business planning. So, what this tells us, this is actually not a rank of 10 activities. Dapat equally divided siya when measuring an organizational effectiveness. Kasi if you notice, lahat yan are key factors to an organization. And on the other side is the 6 level or operating levels. So number 1 is the issue is not recognized. Initial efforts are made toward addressing the issue. The right skills are in place. Appropriate methods are used. Responsibilities are clarified. Continuous improvement is underway. So operating meaning from the time that you do your research and development activities, you should be able to answer these operating levels. So closely monitoring your team in that way. So what is the key takeaway of this topic of organization of research and criteria measurement of effectiveness? Basically, R&D organization output measures can be subjective and objective. So later, kanina nabanggit ko na siya, discrete or scalar, and quantitative and non-quantitative, and there can also be qualitative aspects associated with them. The relationship of output measures to organization goals must also be included. At the end of the day, when you measure, dapat lagi talagang, does it answer the question of na-meet ba ng R&D team yung organizational goals and objectives natin? At the end of the day, that's how we are being measured. So, for the conclusion, so basically, with all these resources from this one to this one, the book suggested this formula. So kanina, di ba, si leadership, meron siyang task plus, what do you call this? And the other two, but for creative criteria and measurement of organization and effectiveness, it's more really on the productivity of the people or the R&D team. And as such, this is the formula. Effectiveness, productivity is equivalent to effectiveness, and effectiveness is equivalent to output times multiplied by quality. So, what is output? So, naka-highlight kasi dito si output. There are different kinds of, three different categories on how you will be able to measure an output. So, I listed them down. First one is process measures. Second is result measures. And third is strategic indicators. So I won't be reading all of this. So you all have the resources. I'll share this slide to you. But to give you a distinctive definition of these three categories, for process measures, process-oriented and relate to activities carried out. So basically, it's more on the process improvement or business process or the things on how you do your research development. So you measure it. So, for example, ayan, nandiyan yung mga keynotes dyan. For result measures, this would be tangible or measurable outputs, rather. So, basically, ito is more on the numbers talaga. Gaano ba talaga naging ka-successful yung R&D or yung project ng isang team. And lastly is strategic indicators. Focus on long-term and strategic aspects. So, what is strategic indicators? Basically, this will tell you does this meet, does the result of your R&D project meet the long-term objective and organizational goal of your company? So, basically, yes, that. So, these are the key main factors of process measures, result measures, and then strategic indicators. Okay, so another topic is creativity. Is it for innovators or inventors? So, marami din kasing sources in terms of creativity. But actually, these resources, parang isa lang yung sinasabi nila. So, I won't read this one na, but focus nyo lang yung kay Sternberg and Lubart, 1995. So, basically, ito yung mga 6 personal resources necessary for creative work. According to them, intelligence, dapat daw, you have to have an IQ of above 120. Second is the knowledge about the industry, the expertise. Third is thinking style. So, as what other people say, creativity is 99% perspiration and 1% inspiration. Personality, so, parang dapat strong ka, you know how to accept mistakes and embracing your weaknesses. Motivation, are you high energy enough to do the research or to be more creative? be in the right environment, which is very critical. So nabanggit ko na ito kanina, which focuses on the organizational culture. Okay. In the end, sabi ng book, The Resource, and I actually agree to it, it's really the innovators who are more creative than the inventors. So why? Kasi nakalagay dito na successful innovators are seen to have a much better understanding of user needs. So it's very a customer-centric person. Iniisip niya kung paano ba niya masasatisfy yung mga customers. Will they be satisfied? Will they be happy at the end of the day? They pay much more attention to marketing, to promoting your brand, work more efficiently. I don't know if, I haven't done any interview with an inventor, but for innovator, I may say na yes, tama nga, na pag-innovator ka, you work efficiently. Parang hindi mo na masyadong pinapahaba yung process, but you try to trim it down in the most cost-effective and efficient way. Use of outside technology and outside advice. So it's not really more on the internal knowledge that you have. So you learn how to ask questions to your customers or to the people around you. You ask opinions kung sa tingin ba nila okay ba yung research, yung project mo or your plan. So, especially in marketing, dapat, you have to know the consumer insights. There has to be a backup kung bakit ka nag-come up din sa ganung plan. It's not always about yourself lang na very opinionated. So, dapat may basis to every decision or plan that you're making. Formation of teams, basically the effectiveness of a team depends on the quality of the people in it and the coordination of its activities. So, tama naman to, I agree to it that it really depends on the quality of the people in it. So you won't be hiring someone na sa tingin mo hindi naman siya qualified. That's why meron tayong certain criteria. Kaya nga may job description. So you learn how to know them there. And then of course, and the coordination of its activities. It should be diverse. When I say diverse, parang hindi naman magiging successful ang isang research if all of you are like scientists in the same field of study. So, katulad dun sa Bell Labs, di ba, they encourage people to talk to different kinds of personality or parang expertise so that, you know, the creativity in terms of their mind on how to develop a certain project will be met. Okay, so there are 3 types of tasks that need consideration. Number 1 is divisible versus unitary task. Number 2 is maximizing versus optimizing task. And number 3 is disjunctive versus conjunctive task. So, what is divisible versus unitary? So, divisible task can be done by different people while unitary cannot be divided. So, ito yung mga task na, for example, in finance, ang alam talaga ng finance kapag nasa finance department ka is really more on the reconciliation, budget preparation. But if you ask them to do like programming, hindi nila magagawa. The same way with the programmers, if you ask someone from marketing, they won't be able to do program. Yeah. So that's you have to consider in terms of for forming a team. Number 2 is maximizing versus optimizing. So, in maximizing, there's no limit. Lahat pwede mong gawin. But in optimizing, you have the criterion to meet with optimal level. So, ako personally, I suggest na mas maganda yung may team na he knows how to optimize the resources and the people around you. Kasi mas effective yun and efficient. For me, maximizing kasi is parang you're letting the people to do what they want without any consideration in terms of the timeline or whatsoever. So in the end, medyo nagiging conflict kasi yun sa isang organization because hindi na meet yung organizational goals. Number 3 is disjunctive versus conjunctive task. So what is this? So for disjunctive task, if one member has the correct solution, the others will necessarily agree. In conjunctive tasks, every member must agree. So if you will notice to this one, disjunctive is really more on free will ng isang tao, while conjunctive is parang you are requiring them to agree kahit alam mo na hindi naman pala, na pwede naman palang hindi. So it's more parang to a certain level of leadership, mas democratic si disjunctive versus kay conjunctive. But with respect to the task, this tells lang na for me personally, disjunctive task is better than conjunctive tasks. Okay. So moving on. So another last report is about breaking R&D isolation. So basically, breaking R&D isolation is actually the third generation of R&D. So what is it about? This will tell you like matching R&D resources with needs. Isolation kasi there were historically nagkaroon ng time na they really want to break the R&D team to the corporate strategy. So that's the history of this article. And then it proved na R&D is very essential and critical to an organization. Because kung wala daw si R&D, then wala yung mga innovators ngayon. Wala yung mga dinidevelop natin na product. So inside this topic is matching R&D resources with needs, building on people's skills and traits, and lastly is motivating through partnership. So let me discuss briefly lang kasi mabilis lang yung konti lang yung resources namin for this topic. But why is there a need to break the isolation between R&D and business? So that's yung history na sinabi ko sa inyo. Number one is to improve overall quality of management. Since you are dealing with somehow the most intelligent people because they are in the R&D, so they can improve the quality of overall management. So medyo iba silang mag-isip versus to other on the business side. Which actually ako I work with Voyager Innovations and I noticed that one. Kasi iba-iba kung paano mag-isip yung mga developers, yung mga project managers, product owners, marketing, sales. So it should be diverse talaga. And that R&D should be part of the corporate strategy. Number one is to avoid technological surprises. Since these R&D people are so technical, they know how to foresee some cases in the industry na alam nila kung kailan magiging obsolete na itong product na ito, na mawawala na yung value. Third is to encourage R&D people to identify with business goals and objective. Of course, well, it's the usual rule in the organization that you have to encourage R&D people to identify with business goals and objectives. You just don't want to create a team without a goal or vision in it. And lastly is to enhance the status and contribution of R&D. So during the time kasi in the third generation na hindi nila ina-acknowledge si R&D team in the corporate world or corporate strategy, they found out na there are things that they need to improve on para mas maging efficient and valuable yung R&D, research and development. So imagine a corporate or a company without research and development team. Siguro wala ngayon yung mga products na ginagamit natin. Because in the S-curve, if you notice, nagsistart naman talaga yun to idea and then R&D. So parang complement silang dalawa. And then after that, andun na yung pagiging newbie ng product, magiging mature na siya, and then stable, and then another S-curve will happen. Okay, so how do we break R&D isolation? So ito yung mga 3 key main factors niya, which actually I will discuss. Matching R&D resources with needs. It should have a basis, if you are allocating some resources. Kasi may expense kasi yun to an organization. So dapat laging may basis. Why do you need this? When do you need this? So it answers yung number na magkano ba yung gagastusin ng isang team when we invest to this kind of technology. So simple as that. Second is building on people's skills and traits. So people development and skills development are both critical to an organization. So pretty much ito yung binabanggit ko kanina na building a good organizational culture na hindi ka nahihiyang magtanong dun sa team member mo kasi ganito siya. So building an open environment organization will help you achieve certain level of satisfaction and fulfillment and sense of belongingness. Ayan. Some of factors here, exercising recognition. So it's very good that you recognize people who achieve great outputs or best outputs in the organization with maximum impact. Removing the culture of stereotypes. Ito yung sinasabi ko kanina. Sometimes there are traditional companies na may layer ka pa bago ka makapunta sa certain person na kailangan mong kausapin or to get approval. Yeah. Okay? And then lastly is motivating through partnership. So what is this one? So nabanggit ko kanina yung sense of belongingness. If you have someone that you can rely on, that he is somehow expert to this field of study, and yet you know that yourself kailangan mo pang matutunan yung certain level of expertise na yun. Kapag may sense of belongingness ka, you are not afraid to ask questions. And if you have that kind of culture in your organization na parang you're not dealing with a different people or a different person, but you're actually dealing with your mentor, your leader, your co-workers. Yeah. So morale, i-highlight ko lang to, morale in R&D is a function of doing challenging work in a rewarding environment. So, simple lang to. So basically, the mindset of the people in the third generation R&D is that if they keep on doing the same thing, the tendency would be parang mawawala ka na sa focus, tatamarin ka na kasi parang naging routinary na siya. So walang challenge. But if you are giving them different tasks to, like for example, quarterly or yearly basis, you have the chance to move to different team, then magiging okay siya. Kasi you learn something new, you learn from different people, and you learn to interact as well. And of course, in a rewarding environment. So, balik lang tayo dito sa isa, na dapat the organization is exercising recognition for the outputs that you've done. Especially kung malakas yung impact nun to the organization. So basically, that's my report, and hopefully, you have the idea on how to develop an R&D organization or laboratory. So that's it for today. I'm signing off. If you have questions, feel free to email me. My email is josemaribasa730@gmail.com. Or if you have comments with this presentation. Okay? So thank you everyone and have a good day. Thank you.